is Sarah Carl, and this is my case study presentation. I did my case study on a 4th grade student in Ms. Bowman's class named TJ. He is 10 years old and he lives with his mother. He had an older brother that also lived with them, but around Christmas time he was in a car accident and passed away. He was a junior in high school, and TJ and his brother were actually very close, so that has affected him greatly. He doesn't talk to his dad very much. I'm not sure how involved he is, but I've only seen him pick TJ up from school one time since I've been with their class. TJ does not have any medical issues or health problems, and he is on PST for reading. He came from an inner city school that did not give him the academic attention he needed, and Ms. Bowman actually told me that, and that is one of the main reasons he is on PST. Some of TJ's strengths and interests. He is very strong in sports. He loves sports. He talks about them all the time. And I've actually seen him at PE and different things at recess, and he is actually very good in sports. Math, he's very strong in math when he actually puts forth the effort. He's very artistic. He actually loves to draw and paint. Ever since his brother died, his brother was on a football team, and his nickname was Redbird. And so you'll see him draw red birds and write it all over his thing. So that's one of the main things that he likes to draw. And he also has leadership qualities. Now, it depends how he uses them, because sometimes it's not always in a positive way, but he's very strong in the sense of leadership. Some of his interests are sports. He always talks about sports, like I said. His favorite sports are basketball, football, baseball, soccer, and kickball. He loves video games, and he also said any kind of sports video games. He loves to draw, like I said before. And then he also loves to make people laugh, and that is actually what TJ told me himself. He loves to make people laugh. Some of his academic and behavioral challenges. He has a challenge in reading. He struggles in reading a lot. He has difficulty with reading comprehension and some phonics. He struggles also with higher order thinking questions. For example, let's say that we read a story in class about a man that was wearing a crazy hat. If I asked TJ what color the man's hat was and there was a picture, he could tell me. But if he had to take the information we read in the story to answer the question, he would struggle with that. So he has a hard time taking what he has read and his background knowledge to be able to answer the higher order thinking questions. Some behavioral challenges. He has a little bit of a temper. He gets very frustrated easily, and when this happens, he completely shuts down. And once he shuts down, it's really hard to get him to participate again or to get back to work. And he's not very good at saying, okay, like this is fine, we're good, and moving on. He kind of holds a grudge for a while. So that usually hinders his work as well. So I observed TJ in 3 different settings. In math, during math time, I observed him. While the students were completing an independent activity, TJ was trying to get help from his neighbor. So they were doing an activity, but it was by themselves. They couldn't get help from their neighbor. And he was trying to talk to her and get her answers from her, and she kept telling him to be quiet and all this kind of thing, and that's very normal for TJ. He kept getting up from his desk to get help from the teacher as well. When she would redirect him back to his seat, he would get upset and mad. Once the neighbor would not help, he then would start getting up, and he came to me and the teacher. And she knew that he knew the information. So she kept saying, you know, TJ, you know it, go back to your seat. And finally, he got upset and he shut down like he usually does. It actually took him twice as long as the rest of the class to finish, because he wasn't focused and he got mad at the teacher. Another setting that I observed TJ was the cafeteria during lunch. The students have 10 minutes of silent lunch every day, so they will eat instead of playing and talking. During their silent lunch time, my teacher and I noticed that he was pouting and not eating his food, which is not normal for TJ at all. He loves to eat at lunch. When my teacher asked him what was wrong, he would not tell her. When he finally told her why he was upset, he said he was mad because they were out of taco sauce. She told him it would be okay and to go have a seat and to eat his lunch. When TJ went back to his seat, he began to talk to the students around him and play with the rubber bands he had in his pocket. So it was still silent lunch, and because he did not get his way, he then proceeded to talk, so that he got in trouble for that as well. And the third setting I observed TJ in was homeroom during morning duties. Every morning the students have the same routine. They are to come in the classroom, unpack, get breakfast, turn in their homework and folder, and complete their morning work while they eat their breakfast. TJ came in hopping on one foot, saying he had broken his leg. The teacher told him to unpack his things and get busy on morning work. He sat down for a few minutes, but during that time, TJ was swinging his breakfast bag in the air. He got up multiple times asking the teacher to do different things so he could get out of doing his morning work, but the teacher kept sending him back to his seat because she knew his morning work was not complete. He does this actually quite often. He tries to go get the POD from the other teacher, or get the snack bucket, or do anything to get out of doing morning work. The last time she redirected him to his seat, he walked slowly back to his seat, folded his arms, and began to pout because he did not get his way, and he got in trouble. So like I said, that's usually his go-to when he gets in trouble. Some of TJ's social strengths. TJ is very good at stepping out of his comfort zone. When we did the sociogram, he actually did well making new friends and trying to interact with new people. And one of the three of the students that he chose on the sociogram to actually interact with is actually one of his friends now that hangs out in his with his other friends. So I thought that was really cool. He is well liked by his peers. Many of the other students chose TJ as their friend because he is fun to be around. He is the class clown. Everybody loves him. Like I said, he has great leadership qualities. He just sometimes doesn't use them like he should. Some of his social challenges, he's not very good at sharing and making compromises with his peers, so that sometimes hinders his social, the social aspect of TJ's life, because him and his brother were so far apart in age that he's never really had to share anything with anybody. And it seems to be either his way or nothing at all, and that turns some people away from him. Sometimes it even makes him lose friends, like I said before. These are a few of lessons that we did and some accommodations I made for TJ since he was on PST. This is a reading lesson, and we talked about cause and effect. I read an excerpt from Ruby Bridges' book and explained the cause and effect and the chain of events in the story. We read the story of Rosa Parks after the Ruby Bridges story as a class, and we completed a graphic organizer together stating the chain of events in the story. The students then had to complete a JAG journal entry independently explaining one specific cause and effect in the Rosa Parks story. For TJ, I had him sit at the back table with me so I could help him get started. Once he had a starting point and he sounded confident in his writing, I sent him back to his desk to finish his work, and he actually did very well with that. Sometimes he's not good with, if you get him started with something and you let him finish, he usually does not do very well with that. You usually have to redirect him quite a few times, but he actually did very well with this that day. Another lesson, this is a math lesson, and we were converting fractions to decimals. I showed a math rap video and introduced the concept. Then as a class, we used place value charts and chips and practiced converting. The students had to complete the last 5 problems on the board using their place value charts. They also had to answer the closing question on the board as their exit ticket. So we had done half of the problems on the board together, and then they had to finish the rest of them and put their answers on a sheet of paper. TJ was having, excuse me, TJ was having a difficult time with the place value charts because he was getting confused on when we were going from decimal to fraction or fraction to decimal. So I pulled his small group to the back table first, and we worked the problems together because while they were finishing their independent, I was pulling small groups in the back. So I just pulled his group back first, and he did really well with that also. And then the third lesson is a science lesson, and we talked about animal adaptations. I introduced animal adaptations with a short, smart file explaining the differences between hot and cold climate animals and their adaptations. We then conducted a blubber activity, placing our hand in a bucket of ice water with an empty bag over our hands, and then placing it in the ice water with a bag full of Crisco over our hands. The Crisco represented the layer of fat cold climate animals have as an adaptation to survive in the freezing temperatures. The students had to record their observations on an activity sheet I gave them. They had to explain how each bucket and bag felt, answer a few questions at the end, and draw a picture explaining how it felt to them. They were placed in groups of 2 based on where they sat in the room. I usually have to redirect TJ because, especially with these kind of activities that aren't as structured, he usually gets a little too wild and rambunctious and doesn't finish his work. I usually have to redirect TJ to sit down or complete his work, but he did very well with this activity. He was paired with a student that is strong in science, and he also works well with. The student helped TJ stay on task to complete the activity, so his partner helped him a lot during this lesson. An intervention I used was positive behavior support. I implemented positive behavior support with TJ in a few different ways. I gave verbal praise when he completed a task, or even if maybe he didn't complete something or he didn't do it, like the other kids did, but I knew that he worked really hard, and I noticed that he was doing his best. I also wrote sticky notes of encouragement and would randomly place them in his folder at the beginning of the day when I would sign after they turned them in for the homework. The results, I found that the positive behavior support really helped TJ. One of his greatest weaknesses is the lack of self-confidence. And if I would have done anything differently, I think I would have been a little bit more persistent with the positive behavior support. I try to do it as much as possible, but some days we're just so busy, it was easy to forget those simple things like the sticky notes. I also wish I would have sent home positive notes to his mom. When he had a really good day or worked hard that day, I think both TJ and his mom would have benefited a lot from those notes, because his mom works all the time, so she's not always able to be around or listen how his day went, anything like that. So I think those notes would have really helped. The most important thing I learned from TJ is that you can overcome any adversity if you want it bad enough. When I first started working with TJ, I thought it was partial laziness that was holding him back from his true potential. But in reality, he just needed somebody on his team. He needed somebody to tell him he is smart when he didn't believe it, and to praise his hard work. Once I started doing these simple things with him and giving him my undivided attention, it was amazing to see what happened. He would show me a test grade that had a big A on it, and he would be grinning from ear to ear. TJ is a very special kid with a bright future, and I'm very thankful I had the opportunity to work with him. He taught me a lesson that I will never forget. Thank you.